right, welcome. This is, you're in for a treat. We know both of these schools and these presenters very well. This is really sort of the leading edge of this work, right? Integrating SEL and academics from a leadership perspective. How do you do it across the school, across the district, internally, externally? How do you make it seamless? How do you build the muscles so that folks are comfortable doing work that they intellectually know about but have not either been responsible for or have not perhaps seen it as part of their day-to-day responsibility. So without further ado, this is going to be interactive, right? We're going to begin with an elementary school that the level 5 school and has turned itself around very quickly. And then we'll talk with the high school, the Burke High School, which has done similar kind of work. We'll have some quick questions right in between for the Parker School, and then some quick questions for the Burke, and then we'll open it up to questions for both schools so that we can accommodate everybody's needs. So interactive, but first you're going to hear about some very interesting, out-of-the-box, leading-edge kind of work. So over to my left, you meet it, is the Burke High School team. Everybody knows Burke High School from Boston?
Hi guys, hello everybody. Happy to be here.
And to my far left is the Parker Elementary School from New Bedford. And so I'm going to kick it over to Fran and Jen, and they can introduce themselves and share the Parker story.
So hi, I'm Fran Roy. I'm on the school and main team, but I serve as a receiver for Parker. So for those of you that don't understand that, Parker has been designated a chronically underperforming school for quite some time. Last year, the school and main team with myself became the receiver of Parker Elementary, and one of our first orders of business was to get a leadership team in place. So to the right of me is Jen Mainelli.
Hi, hello everybody, I'm Jen. I'm the principal at Parker Elementary. This is my second year. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher forever, an instructional coach, and then unfortunately being actually principal.
Okay, so just a little bit to provide some context to you about Parker, and then we'll try to get this in 25 minutes, everything that we've done in the past year, and hopefully it makes sense to you all. So Parker is an elementary school. We have about 35% of our, about 1/3 of our kids are English learners, 70% economically disadvantaged, 50% SPED, and largely underperforming. I think last year it was in the 7th percentile, and it's been way below that, around that percentile for quite a few years. So first thing we're doing, we're going to give you a snapshot of last year. So we came in and we were trying to identify where we're going to go. And if you take a look at the student support data, this is our year in a nutshell. If you can look in the October, we were pulling our hairs out and Jen was about to quit. No, I'm joking, Jen was about to quit, but it was tough. We had, on average, like 112 calls for assistance on, in a given week, right? So things were, as you know, so the kids were not engaged in learning. That's probably the nicest way to put it. The kids were not engaged in learning. Over the course of and during that time, we had 18 kids that had 4 or more calls for assistance from a classroom. We're not a large school. We're only about 250 kids. That's a lot. That's a high percentage for 18 little kids to be struggling. And then over the course of the year, you can see how the numbers went down, and so did everybody's anxiety levels went down. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we did that work. As well as, and that's previous slide, by the way, speaking of MTSS, is one of the ways that we monitor ourselves. Are the things we're doing working in terms of student support? But of course, the instruction is just as important. And we did try to measure really just 3 priorities. We were looking at well-structured lessons, specifically around mathematics, because that was our huge focus. We can't do everything year 1. And this is an internal protocol that we would use to monitor classroom instruction to see if there was strong evidence of what we were expecting. A safe learning environment is the intersection, right, between the academics and the SEL. So there's both of them. These are teaching standards, but it's also just that integration. And a collaborative learning environment. When we had originally gone in there, it was very compliant. It was very quiet, and kids weren't engaged, they weren't thriving, there was not a lot of academic discourse. They were either compliant or, as you saw the calls for assistance, they weren't happy and they were eloping and doing all kinds of other things. So I think the best way for us to teach, I'm trying to teach what can I tell you about the work we've done. The way we think about the work is really around three things: the why, the how, and the what. Now I've done turnaround work in many other districts with other schools. And what I've learned from this is, if your school is not thriving, if your school is not improving, either the why is not there, the how, or the what, or some combination of the both. On the other hand, in order for your school to thrive, there needs to be this through line between why you do what you do, how you do it, and what you do, right? So I think what we're going to try to share with you when you watch the stuff that we do is really think about this through line. So sometimes we're talking about the why, sometimes we're working on the how, and sometimes we're working on the what. So with that, just a small example of that, we always begin with the why. So if you just take a quick look at this photo, those are Parker kids on the left and the Bedford High School kids on the right. And we began our work with teachers just like this. We said, what do you think those kids are thinking and feeling? And that's how we began. That's our first institute with teachers. This is the first thing we did. What are they thinking and what are they feeling? And what was our role as elementary school to get the kids from the left to the right-hand side? So just a quick example of how we do this work. Now, more specifically, I am going to give you a lot of detail. Jen is going to give you some detail on where we took it from there.
So with our teachers, we really, after thinking about that why, we had to think about what are our priority areas, what is our focus in moving school. And so the marriage between the SEL and academics, as we all know, is so crucial, and so our priority areas just lived in there. So to the right, you see our areas all around academics, and to the left is all around SEL. And the MTSS framework, that blueprint, just sort of lives through all of this. So all three tiers are here. The top really focuses on the core, and the tier 1, both in academics and SEL. And then that bottom portion is the tier 2 and tier 3, and how do we support both our academically and our social emotionally fragile students. So when thinking about those 4 priority areas, we really had to ask ourselves as a leadership team, how do we do this work both with kids and how do we do this work with adults? Because they are 2 very different things. And so when thinking about how we do this work with kids, we really lived in a lot of the work and the research put out by Dr. Bruce Perry, Dr. Stuart Alvin. I'm going to just read a couple of quotes. Relationships are the agents of change, and the most powerful therapy is human love, and kids do well if they can. So when we think about our how, we really think about the fact that our students learn from those that they love. And so the relationships that we build with our kids, that's the core of everything we do. It's the core of what we call our Parker why. It's what makes every decision that we make, whether we're in TCT, common planning design, developing professional development, making a family engagement event. Everything we do is walking our Parker why and really thinking about those authentic relationships. So these are just a couple of examples. The top left, that's actually our secretary and one of our tier 3 socially emotionally fragile students. She's just giving him a hug. That's something you see in our building throughout the day, every day. It's all about building that trust and that safe space for our kids. In the top right, you'll see our oldest students, our 5th graders. We do a lot of empathy training with them. They work with our youngest students, so down below, those are our kindergartners, and they work as mentors, and they team up and they work with the little kids to really sort of develop that empathy that a lot of our older kids might be lacking due to some trauma that they have faced. And then finally down below, this is one of our students in 5th grade as well, who has really developed a strong relationship with one of the support team members. And it just says, thanks for believing in me. So the how is all really around those trusting, safe relationships. Thanks. And so this next piece is all around the what. So that's the how, that's sort of like the heart of everything that we do and every decision we make. However, then we need to think about what we're going to provide for our staff and how to support the teachers to do this. And so the what lives in all of these things. We are a responsive classroom school. We brought in things for the teachers, including collaborative problem solving, lots of research around trauma in the brain and how to make their classrooms more therapeutic for students. We use Playworks as a recess curriculum for the teachers, so all teachers actually do recess with their students. It's just another time in the day that they're able to build those relationships with kids. And so then in thinking about the 3 tiers put out by the MTSS blueprint, these are some proactive systems of support that we embedded into our school culture. So in the classroom, you'll see these systems of universal support to just support everyone across the school. So to the left, this is a proactive approach where a teacher is holding a restorative circle. So something happened that day during specials, a fight broke out between 2 kids, and so there was a restorative circle to discuss what happened and how we can repair and move forward. To the right, you'll see this is our assistant principal. She does what we call our SEL walkthroughs. So 6 times throughout the day, we have one member of the admin team who walks the school. They just walk through the classrooms. They're checking in on the students, both our fragile students and our non-fragile students, just as a body and a face, just so that way the kids and the teachers always know that somebody is there to support. And sometimes that support looks like the person pushing in takes over the lesson and the teacher is the one who steps out and has a proactive moment with a student who might be struggling. So really to support the teachers to be able to do that work with their kids. And then for tiers 2 and 3, we provide some proactive systems of targeted and intensive support. So these are some of our students who are on what we call check-in, check-out cards. These are really different than behavioral like sticker charts that are more traditional. These are charts that students create with a point person that they trust and feel supported by, and they set up goals for themselves. And throughout the day, they check in with that person, and they assess themselves how they're doing towards meeting that goal. So their goal might be something as simple as, I will raise my hand if I have something to share, or I will use my strategies to regulate myself if I'm feeling angry. And so throughout the day, they track themselves with their point person to really see how well they're doing in meeting those goals. And then at the end of the day, it's a time to reflect, it's a time they actually chart their progress, and it's a time to build some of that growth mindset as well. There's no extrinsic motivators, there are no prizes, there are no tickets, nothing that goes along with it. It's simply just a time to really reflect on the day, celebrate the successes, and then problem solve and process through the challenges.
Yeah, just before we sort of switch gears with this. So when you look at these 3 kids here, these are 3 success stories. The boy here in the middle was actually out on a 45-day placement and came back to us, and we were struggling with him, and then we just, we built that relationship with him, and the family resource manager was his point person. And he's really turned it around, so have the other 2 boys. And just to show you, even the check-in, check-out, the picture on the left, there's a hug. The hugs are actually strategic. Like we do it on purpose. It's not just, and then if you walk in our building, you will see it. There is some research that we've tapped into about the antidote to cortisol, which is that fight or flight stuff, right? You understand that trauma piece, is oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So we also understand that when we're hugging them and we're making that connection with them, that cortisol is coming down. And, there's a lot of we have a lot of angry kids and a lot of kids who are on fight or flight and overdrive. And it is our love, it is those relationships that are helping regulate them more than anything else. So now Jen is handing off to me the academic side of the house. So the way we do the academics side is we really believe in the sort of constructivist theory of learning. We have a couple of quotes up there for you about how children learn. And if you look at this first quote, the learners in their charge must be led to trust that their ideas count, that their peers and the teacher really care about their thinking, that they will be given the time to explore different strategies and pursue their inquiries, that their questions and insights matter. If we were in a smaller setting, I would ask you to do a turn and talk right now about, is that an SEL quote or is that a teaching and learning quote? And how does that quote, how is that different than what traditional instruction looks like? Right? So when you think about that, this is the key. When you look at our classrooms, our expectation, we're not there yet, we're working on it, but we want the kids owning the work. The kids are coming up with the strategies. The kids are modeling their posters, right? The kids are constructing these really, they're solving complex problems and persevering. The other piece to that, when you think about the MTSS framework, is not every kid's at the same level, right? So if you've got kids, this is reality of classroom instruction. You've got kids that are here, and you've got kids that are down here on the landscape. So we tend to pull programs and trainings for our teachers that help teachers identify where on the landscape of learning kids are, right, Alicia? You know this very well. And then this idea that teachers need to be constantly assessing where that kid is, right? So there's a whole technical piece to that work as well. So, as I said, I've done this work in a lot of other schools, a lot of other districts, and sometimes what I see is I see districts and schools that are really all about the SEL. They're doing a great job in the SEL, and then you go into their classrooms during academic time, and it's very traditional. The kids are bored. The teacher is telling them what to do. There's a lot of worksheets going on. You lost all that good SEL stuff that you're trying to build, and you've separated it from what actually goes on in the classroom, right? So if your classrooms are a community of learners, then you're not integrating the two, right? They're not just, it's not about behavior management. If you're doing that, it's because you're doing more about behavior management and you want the kids to comply. All those SEL skills that you're building and you're helping kids regulate and the perseverance and the growth mindset, what, if you really believe in that, then think about that. So what should your classrooms look like as communities of learners, right? And how are those two connected? Okay. You know, so just in general, I think what we're trying to show you with this is how kids learn impacts the resources we bring to teachers. So for example, if you truly believe in a constructivist theory of learning, and that kids should be constructed in knowledge, but then the program that you gave to teachers is very teacher-directed, very I do, we do, you do, yep. Right? You've got a mismatch. The alignment is not there. And then you get mad at the teachers because your classrooms don't look like the way you want them to look like, but you didn't give them the resources to do it, right? So I think what we're trying to express to you is that everything we do, every program, every training, every resource we do is intentional and aligned with what we believe about how this work needs to be done with kids. So just an example, just because we love our kids so much, we just can't stop looking at pictures of them. Even in kindergarten, you're seeing kids do a math congress, and then you see these kids presenting some of their work up there and on how they colored in the apple boxes. This is an interesting tier 2, 3 approach to struggling learners. Jen, but this was your brainstorm, so I'm going to have you explain this one.
So the state releases our bottom 25% that we need to track and make sure that we are providing extra support. So the leadership team sort of designed what we call a really targeted and intensive support for those kids, and we titled it the Kids Club. And so each student had their own individualized action plan around elements of extra support that they needed during the school day. After the school day, which we partnered with UMass to have college students come and provide the tutoring at that time, as well as an at-home piece. And so we partnered with their parents and we met with them bi-weekly to track their progress through this intensive support. And so the students, like Fran said, they're getting their needs met both academically as well as social emotionally, because they were partnered with these UMass college students who this boy right here to the left, he was one of our 6th graders last year. He's one of our most intense students, and the smile that he had on his face every day when he would get to go work with his college student was really, just the best part of the day. So by having that time where the students are really having their needs met, and as the adults in their lives are holding them to those high expectations, but providing them with those supports that they need to meet them, again, we're sort of hitting on both the SEL and academic side.
So
So the other side of it is how we do this work with the adults. So our professional development is always really purposeful. It always sort of links up to not only our Parker why, but that marriage between the academics and the SEL. So anything that we bring, whether it's culturally responsive teaching in the classroom, whether it's work around our math curriculum, context for learning, everything has a lens of that marriage between the two. And then from that, we have really purposeful TCT time. So we restructured the master schedule to allow for 90 minutes a day of TCT, and so it's one grade level per day. So every grade level has that time once a week. And at those meetings, they look really closely at what we call the planning for learning cycle. And so everything that they plan lives in this cycle, and it lives in core, tier 1, which was really important, as well as tier 2 and tier 3 for our students who need interventions. And in that time also, we really dive deep into those social, emotional, and academically fragile students. And the instructional coach supports the staff in really targeting those kids based on assessment data that is current and valuable, and that is going to lead the work.
And just the other piece about data, right, given the MTSS, one of the shifts that we made was we put in a new assessment system, because the assessment system that was in place really wasn't diagnosing kids. It wasn't helping teachers inform their instruction. So a lot of this is about the systems. If your data is not helping inform what you do not measure it. It's just a waste of time and resources, right? So you again, looking strategically, just because every other district's using this particular assessment that I'm talking about, doesn't mean you need to as well. If it's helping you make better decisions about kids, academically, socially, emotionally, then that's great. But if it's not, it's just another measure. From the leadership perspective, I've been very impressed. Jen's this is your third year principal now, third year, and we've had some nice results. And she's just strategically always, and I'm not going to go into it too much, she's strategically reinforcing our why. This is just her Sunday memo, and you see the title of it is Walking Our Parker Why, and she's reinforcing what she saw that week that matched the work we've done in professional development and TCT and what we're expecting of teachers. This is just her constantly messaging, giving feedback to staff constantly in a really positive growth mindset way about what we're doing well and where we need to go. So I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to move to the long and short of it is we had a very good year. We moved from the 7th percentile to the 27th percentile in 1 year. And we were so excited. We were so happy. We were just like, yeah, we got this. We just so got this. And then we had our summer institute, and then the kids came. and to be quite honest, this is what it feels like right now to us, right? So I think the lesson that we're learning is we really have a couple of kindergarten kids. We have 8 kindergarten kids that are kicking that for us right now. And it's a good reminder to us that we have to continue to learn. We have to continue to problem solve. We need our systems to work for the kids. It's not, if the kid's not being successful, there's something wrong with what we're doing, not the other way around. And so there's this constant problem solving across all the tiers about this work that we tend to do. But yeah, we don't have time to tell you the whole story, and that's it.
Any quick clarifying questions or something that you heard real quickly that you want a quick answer on before we turn to Burke, and then we'll open it up for everybody. Okay. The reason we chose Parker again, you'd say, why a level 5 school? Right? Level 5 school's in receivership. And so, but what you can see is in 1 year, a school that was underperforming for many, many years, over 4 or 5 years in receivership, made a huge jump simply because it changed leadership and the approach. Now, their SEL walkthroughs, 6 times a day, 30 seconds in a classroom sometimes, make a difference for kids. So innovative things happening even at schools in receivership that really make a difference. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the Burke School. And Lindsa.
All right, I'll take it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know we just had lunch and we just saw a remarkable presentation, and I ditto everything this wonderful school team did That's how you take care of the business. I'm going to introduce you to the Burke High School. The Burke High School was one of our Commonwealth underperforming schools. It is the first and still the only, after maybe 6 years now, high school to exit turnaround underperformance status. Currently in the Boston Public Schools, we have 3 exam schools, but outside of that, the Burke is one of our top 4 high-performing schools. So I want to talk a little bit about the journey of getting there and how we focus the work. And I want you as a backdrop to just understand everything they just said. And so I'm going to talk to you a little differently about the role of school leaders to advance equity, to advance achievement through equity. But before we get into this presentation, I'm going to lay some groundwork for you that might be a little different than how you entered into your work of teaching and leading. Number one, instead of holding up your evaluation tool as a way to grow performance, lift up your heart, generate will, encourage people, practice radical love, inspire them. Notice when they do something right, not just when they did something wrong. And speak to that. Generate goodwill. Remind people that not only is education a science, but it is part of our humanity. The other piece of background I want you to hold in esteem is your ability to build capacity. How do you allow people to learn from one another through the lived experiences of teaching and leading? How do you let them naturally develop their scope of this work? How do you use your 2 most powerful resources to progress your students? Your time and your teachers. What does your schedule look like? Does it bring them together in professionalism? What is the role of building capacity in creating the conditions for all students to be successful? Culture. Does it look the same way it looked 10 years ago? If it does, you're in trouble. Because you don't have the same learners. Because the demographics of the nation has changed the focus and the picture of public education. So who are the students sitting in front of you today? And how does your community, how do the walls, how do the symbols reflect the values, the traditions, and their understandings? So they have a sense of belonging in that building, in that classroom, and in that space. Politics, oh my gosh, they're so deep, they're so wide. How do you mitigate, understand, bridge, buffer politics so that it doesn't disrupt or explode every little thing you're trying to do in developing your practice? How do you manage that? How do you keep politics in a place where it progresses the practice rather than distort it? And what is your role to understand inequity, not equality? How do you allow yourself to be free to give somebody more than somebody else without feeling as if you've been unfair, but knowing that every child needs what he or she needs to optimally perform? So the Burke High School, we look at the effects of non-academic indicators on achievement, on performance. Children don't leave themselves outside the classroom when they enter into the school. They bring themselves with them. And children today are bringing poverty, they're bringing trauma, they're bringing homelessness, they're bringing violence, they're bringing substance abuse, they're bringing mental health illnesses. How do you mitigate those things so that the stress of those things don't disrupt their opportunity to learn? What are the frameworks, the strategies that you might engage to mitigate those challenges? And I'll tell you a little bit about the Burke, and Cheryl can help me with this. 85% of the student population is traumatized. They walk in the door traumatized. And our job is to stabilize them so that they're free to learn. How do we do it? We build opportunities to learn how to address trauma in teaching. We build and practice policies that paved the way for teachers to know that good teaching is not just cognitive. Good teaching is cognitive, but it also is socio-emotional, it's socio-cultural, and it's socio-economic alongside those cognitive understandings. That's good teaching. And so when you enter into a classroom or a school community that is diverse, that is urban, that is challenged by non-academic indicators, you must practice that as your way of teaching and learning. So those are some of the strategies. In addition, marginalized students, historically marginalized students, are coming in below grade level. And so when you start this work, you oftentimes can't afford to stop it in the summer if you want to close the gap. And so how do you create opportunities to have them imagine school as a 12-month year plan? What are you doing in the summer? And it is my responsibility to plan for you. So Upward Bound, Harvard Crimson, Andover Academy, Exeter Academy. How do I make these opportunities available to children in the summer so that they can compete equivalently when they come back in the fall? So creating systems of supports. I'm going to let Cheryl talk a little bit about this, and Filomena.
Okay, the Burke High School, in a very organic way, under the direction of Dr. McIntrye, bringing in services and supports for all children, we became one of the first hub schools in the district. What does it mean to be a hub school? A hub school is a school that provides students with supports in every aspect of their life, supporting the whole child. We have students that came in, they are absent because 2 or 3 days because they have a toothache and they cannot afford the dentist. So our school health department, in association with the nurse, we seek out providers, dental service providers to come into the school. Before it was like there's a crisis, we call them in. Now they come regularly to see our students' dental services. Just like the parents that can schedule appointments for their children, we as a school schedule appointments for the students that don't have dental services or the parents don't have the money. They get braces, they get cleaning, they get fillings, all services that the parents pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for, our students get it for free. We also have a kids closet. Students that sometimes, dressing becomes a problem for our students because when they come through the door, we can tell who has the $180 sneakers and who's using the same sweater every single day of the week. And sometimes young adults don't want to tell you, I don't have it. So you have to have the staff that they trust and they can tell, Mister, I didn't come to school yesterday because my clothes were kind of smelly and I couldn't come. So we take those students into kids' closet and we tell them, go shopping. They have khaki pants, they have sweaters, they have jeans, they have sneakers, socks, a hygiene product. Girls especially, they love to go in there and bring their bags and stock up. They don't want anybody to see them. So I just tell them, go in, now close the door. When you're ready, just close the door behind you. And they do. More and more we see children coming in and using the service that we offer as a hub school. We also have YDN, come from the Boston Health Commission, that does home visits for our students. When they don't come to school, and we call the parents, oh, I told them to woke up and he didn't, so I don't know what's going on. So we send our partners on home visits to knock on the door and talk to the students and tell them, hey, why aren't you coming to school? And mitigate the problems that keep them from coming to school. I don't want to take too much time to go through all of that, but partnerships is the key to our success in coming out of turnaround. We went from having 82% attendance to running a 92% currently daily attendance. Most high schools in Boston are still running, with the exception of the exam school, they're still running around 80, 85%. We have been over 9% since the second or third year of turnaround. Our graduation rate was at 34%, our cohort graduation. We are now almost at 80%. We could not have done this work unless we addressed every student at school and their whole child needs. See, what do they need? What can we do to make them feel better, to make them come to school and feel good as a student? Because all students are smart, they all can learn, but if you have dealing with issues that you cannot address, that your family cannot help with, you come to school and you don't talk to anybody, you just sit there, do nothing and go home. So we have tons and tons of partners that could go on. If you really want to reach out to us, we can send you our list of partners and how they help us, in what areas they help. But right now I'm going to give it to Cheryl to talk about social emotional.
So just to start off with MTSS, as we call it at the Burke, I think it was really important for us to do this, especially when we were in turnaround, because it was apparent that we really needed to actually create an environment that was safe for not only our students but our staff, and to make everyone feel, just to have that little bit of vulnerability that a lot of us don't like to share. We all like to think that we have all the answers. But I think once you create that safe environment where students are able to say, hey, I don't get that, it's great for them to be able to feel that way, because it takes a lot. Just like in here, I bet you there's some folks who probably wouldn't even speak up today because you're just a little bit insecure. We all have that. And it's important for staff also to recognize that, and for us to make them feel that have that level of psychological safety. So in MTSS, as we call it, I wish it said MTSS, because when I look at that, it sounds so strange. It was really important also to make sure that folks had the right disposition, and that's all staff. Because if I'm a student, and even though you could be the most brilliant, biology teacher, if I feel you don't like me, I think it's Lisa Delpit, basically, I'm not going to learn from you. Why? You don't like me. So it's important that we hire folks that love children and staff, because relationships are key, and I love that the Parker School made that very apparent, because I was like, right on. Because if you don't have those relationships, it's just not going to happen. So our teachers have wonderful relationships, but the other thing is they all don't have that social worker hat. So even though Cheryl's going to them and Cheryl's saying, oh God, this is what happened to me, last night, and the teachers are listening, but they're starting to feel overwhelmed because I don't know what to do with this. And because we all have small budgets, it was really important, like how are we going to address the social emotional needs, and how are we going to address when 85% of our students have trauma. So it was important. We actually are in Boston, we're lucky, we have wonderful universities. We created just amazing partnerships with Boston College, Boston University, Lesley University, Boston's College Race of Institute and Culture, and we have over 16 interns at the Burke. Because when you have 85% of your student body has significant trauma, you really need each student to have that special person they can speak to. Now, as you know, not all adolescents like that one-to-one kind of interaction, so we were also able, with the partnerships, to have, BAM, I don't know if you're familiar with Becoming a Man. They come in and actually teach classes to our young men. It's amazing. We also have Doc Wayne, which is another service. Some kids can't do that one-on-one. They can't sit there and look at Miss Windle. They want to run with their peers. They want to be on the gym court running drills. But it's kind of a disguise because it's therapy. So it's pretty awesome, So that's how we actually do it at the Burke.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. So when you talk about innovative opportunities, these are opportunities that are really student-centered. For example, you're doing something that is relevant not only to the students, but relevant to today's industry. At the Burke, we just started a pathways program in the biotech industry. So we have actual tools and instruments in our labs that folks are using in the labs, in hospitals and in research labs around the city, actually. And what's important about that opportunity that we invite scientists and folks that work in the lab to be mentors and to come help support those programs. Another thing we do, we link all of this with PIC. This is Private Industry Council that provide jobs for our students, as well as dual enrollment opportunities around the city for students to to be, get involved in and have access to college and those type of activities. And so we also, I mentioned that we bring mentors in, but we also want opportunities where our students will actually leave the buildings. We know learning happens outside of the four walls of the school, right? And so we give our students some opportunities to maybe do some service learning trips to like Romania, or Nicaragua, So we partner with some community partners so our students are able to do that. But not only that, we also link them up with other STEM opportunities where students can go out and compete in mathematics, robotics, and other technical talk type applications.
And so a lot of what he's talking about is creating access and removing barriers. And when we speak and think about equity and social justice, that's just as much a part of our work as content, as social emotional learning, as good, strong teaching and learning. And so we operate on shared leadership because there's so many balls moving in the air at the same time. Too much for a hero, too much for one person, but many hands make light work. And so with our understanding of shared leadership, we are able to distribute opportunities to teachers and faculty and staff members and have them own them and be the expert in them while we assume an expert role in something else. The other thing that's important about understanding shared leadership and distributive practices is that human nature, people don't always feel good when they have to answer to one person. They feel oftentimes as if they're not valuable and that their thinking and their opinions don't count and that maybe they don't matter. It may be even a little condescending. And so when you're in those situations and you're constantly responding to a top-down authoritative process, you tend to only want to work when that person's looking, but not own the responsibility of the profession for yourself, for the children, and for the families you serve. So that's a great reason why we need to move away from this top-down perspective to this collective organization where one thought is just as important as another. At the end of the day, we do realize where the buck stops and who's going to take the hit or the fall. But during the day, let's all be in it to win it for the children that we serve, and let's do it together. So leadership is not defined by the exercise of power, but by the capacity to increase the sense of power among those led. The most essential work of the leader is to create more leaders, to allow people to be greater than they were before they met you. So Filomena talked a little bit about community partners, but what she didn't talk about is creating a schedule that invites them into your school day. So we don't have a huge budget, and a lot of our extras come from philanthropic opportunities or partners. And how we earn our keep is by providing them space and place in our school day. So we have 826 Boston, the writer's room. They live in the school during the day, after school, as an extension or a part of who we are. And since we've invited them into our community, our students have 5 published books, and they journal every day. We have Build On. Because we financially cannot afford to send our kids to Paris, they go to Paris by community service. And so when they find themselves in college and people are talking about their international trips, well, they can say, well, I'd like to share mine. And not feel left out, but feel included. Do you know that word we like to talk about, inclusion? We have the provision for our children to be included beyond the school walls, included in society, included in college, included in life, included in economic stability. and in this opportunity to be able to love and care for themselves and their families, just like we do. Behind every organization impulse is the realization that by joining with others, we can accomplish something important that we cannot accomplish alone. So I'd like to say this: in our schools, what's going to create that sense of belonging, that ability for a teacher to be vulnerable and to learn from her peer or his peer without feeling insecure or threatened by their employer, is a culture of interdependence. A culture of interdependence that's built on radical love, relationship, trust, vulnerability, psychological safety. You know how easy it is to learn from a colleague? When you say, hey, let's have lunch together. So what did you think about what they said at the meeting yesterday? Help me make sense of that. And you learn during lunch. You don't have to spend $250. You don't have to go to PD. If you can create a community where people can learn from the lived experience of one another during the day, and then add on some very specific professional development, well, then you will find yourself with a school full of teacher leaders. So the way we approach this work is not like it's a march, because marches are top down. Somebody's telling you left, right, right? I do, you do. It's a dance. And it's, what do you need to make that rhythm? And how am I going to get it for you? So we believe that leadership is on the line, but more than that, we believe that leadership is a dance and not a march. And we will end here so that you can engage us in your inquiry. Thank you. Here are some takeaways up that I did forget to mention, and I'll just point them out really quickly and then turn this over for your questions. We want you to take away a collaborative schedule for providing teacher time, data review, and teacher collaboration. Does your schedule offer you that? In our schedule, every content team has 80 minutes off every single day to be a professional, to plan, to look at data, to look at student work, to provide an inquiry cycle. Relevant roles in your staffing that meets the needs of students. We don't have any disciplinarians, and we don't have, I think we had 5 suspensions last year. We don't have disciplinarians because we're not looking for trouble, we're looking for love. What we have are engagement counselors. These are problem solvers. These are people that regularly give kids the skills they need to navigate through life's daily ups and downs. We don't have guidance counselors because they're so traditionally vetted in what's your GPA and your SAT score. Or what did you do on the MCAS? And we're more than numbers. There's a face to our data. So we have student development counselors that come to meet you and know you holistically and work with you to carve out a plan that will take you into your best future, live in your greatest potential. We have a climate and a culture that honors our values. My understanding of respect mirrors every 14, 15, 17-year-old child in the building as long as we're in the building. We have the same understanding. We live it, we teach it, we celebrate it. What are your core values and how do they give common language and common behaviors to all members of your school community? It's like, this is how we do it. Everybody comes with that. And finally, building capacity. You know, it's so easy to get tripped up into wanting to have power. But the question is, power to do what? If you want power to move a school, you will find it through your relationships and your experiences with those that are around you. If you want power to soothe your own ego, well, you can find that at home. So thank you.
Questions? For either team, both teams, all teams? Leadership questions, implementation questions. This is interactive. Yes.
When you're building partnerships at the very first moment, like what's your first step? I'm gonna get on the phone, I'm gonna call Boston College, and I'm just gonna ask who, what.
That's exactly what you do. You just, whoever department, whether you want a teacher, intern, or if you want a social work intern, you just ask for that particular school. Like School of Social Work, I would recommend for BC, or the Race of Culture, definitely, the Institute of Race and Culture.
So what do, right? You talk to them like you talk to somebody else. Hi, my name is, I am calling from, and here's a need I have. I wondered if there's anybody there that I can talk with. Very simple. But you have to be able to be vulnerable. And that's the piece that I think we most have to work on. How do we let people know that we need what we need to be okay without feeling less than who we are?
Actually, I can almost guarantee you that all the universities and colleges still have students they need to place, especially in counseling. I still get emails like, hey, can you take another student? And I'm like, oh my God. So call them.
I just want to add that you build a reputation as a school. They're once partners. We have people knocking at our doors every day wanting to come and work for the Burke. First of all, we get a school account. A person that comes knocking, hey, how are you? What do you want to offer us? So they come looking to offer and make them feel home. Our partner staff, our kids don't know if they work for BPS or if they're from a partner or from a CDO. They just are staff. They're just people that work with us. It's seamless. Even prime real estate. When she was the headmaster, she'd come. Find them that room on the third floor, but that's so-and-so's room. I don't care. So it's about making them feel good. Give them the office that is going to make them look good. Our homeless partners, youth harbors, they have the best location in the school. They have rooms with big windows, and the kids come in there, and they feel good. And these are helping our homeless kids to find a home, our teenagers to go to living quarters where they share rooms with other students, and they pay the rent for those kids. They help pay the rent. So we make them feel like they're part of our community. We give them the best space, and we love them to death, and we feed them all the time.
Other questions? Yes.
Can you say more about your engagement counselors and how you run about approaching students with engagement counseling?
Oh, absolutely. Good question. So when I arrived, there were 525 suspensions in a year. I looked at the data and I said, my goodness, 125 in September? Everybody's brand new. Nobody wants to get kicked out of school in September. They get new shoes, new sneakers. This is not a student problem, it's an adult problem. And so I looked around, there was a whole team of disciplinarians. And I thought, in order for them to feel validated, as if they did a good day's work, they gotta go get kids. That's their job, go get them. They have to find kids doing wrong rather than notice them doing right. And so I immediately decided I no longer needed disciplinarians. That I assumed that everyone had good intentions. And when I began to talk to kids, I had town meetings, monthly, weekly, and I began to teach kids Horace Mann principles, right? That personalization is key. And the way in which you allow people to hear you, even when you're upset, is to use a tone of decency and trust. And I would just keep repeating it, and they say, I know, Miss, tone of decency and trust. And they started internalizing those principles. And I said, listen, when they have problems, I don't need them out of the class. I don't want you to send them home. Help them solve the problem and get them back in the class. And I put engagement counselors on every floor. And the engagement counselors were people that looked like them, people that liked them and would see them after school, and people they just innately trusted. And these engagement counselors would be able to say to them, so what happened? How are we going to get past that? What do you think you need to do? What could you have done differently? How about we do a restart? How about if I go get the teacher and you communicate with her? Whatever way we could get them to own their responsibility and solve the problem and get back to class was the goal. And now, yes.
Sorry, go
Oh.
It was on the same line as that. I thought that you were done, so I raised my
Oh.
hand. I didn't want to.
No, I'm pretty much done. And so that's how we did it. So now students more or less will come and say, no, I have a problem, I need to talk with you a little bit later, but I gotta get to class right now. And so they're proactive in solving their problems. And our suspension rates, like I said, dropped from like 525 to nothing. And people say, well, you're hiding things under the rug. And I said, there are no rugs. Very literally. I'm gonna go here and then there.
So along the same line, did you add additional counselors as engagement counselors and keep guidance, or did you use
Two different
those
things.
guidance counselors and give them a new goal?
So the engagement counselors replace the disciplinarians. So don't look for anything bad. Catch kids doing right. Take pictures of them. Hang them up. High-five them. Know every name, every student on this floor, and let them know you through your interaction. So they go in classrooms. I think you talked about having folks go in social emotional learning walkthroughs. Well, that's what they do. They go in classrooms, they sit down, and maybe a child who's been struggling or just solved the problem, they'll wink at them, and they come out, give them a high five, and say, boy, you did a remarkable recovery, and just build community. Guidance counselors, however, are different. So the folks that come in as student development counselors, your job is to develop this child, to know and develop the child in his or her entity, holistically. Don't talk to me about a GPA. Talk to me about what college this child wants to go to, or what career or vocational skill this child needs or wants to achieve, and what it takes to do that. And let's structure that plan for his or her success. But they're regularly certified counselors.
And they also responsible for every ninth grader. Yeah, and they also responsible, when you talk about student development counselor, every ninth grader that comes in the building, they're responsible for finding that 12-month educational plan for that student. So what is going to be their summer experience? Is it going to be at, what did the university called? At Exeter, yes, Harvard, Kristen, whatever that summer enrichment program is going to be or experience going to be for them. So that's the type of thing they're doing.
Relationships, Andover Academy, Phillips Exeter Academy gives us 12 seats each school every summer. So we're sending 24 kids off to a $10,000 experience where they're going to be amongst their peers from international surroundings, and they're going to learn. We remove the barriers. You go and head on in there for some good learning and some grounding in you are what you repeatedly do. And excellence is not an act, it's a habit. And they're getting grounded in the habit of excellence. And so when they come back, they're transformed.
And another question here.
I actually have a question for the
Parker?
Parker.
Yeah.
Two questions. And so I find that, sometimes teachers want to hug students, and then when you hear the side conversation, I don't know, I can hug them. So sometimes they, just because of certain things, I'm curious how you overcame that. And then the second question is regarding the weekly newsletter that you put out about the, what you're doing right. Have you gotten feedback? Are people reading? Because people get a lot of emails, and I'm just curious if you can respond to those two.
Yeah, the hug thing has come up, right? And I will tell you, outside people from the district have questioned the hugging that's going on, and they don't see that as normative. Really, we grounded in the research. We knew that relationships were important. We knew that touch is important. So, we have babies, right? We got 5 or 6 years old. And if we have kids, we have many kids who unfortunately have been taken out of the home. We don't know what 0 to 3 we know that they physically need to be touched to develop, but we have to be careful, obviously, right? There's, all those kinds of rules. So, but the reality is, once we read that research about the need for touch, and if you've ever read anything by Bruce Perry, you might want to do that. And then as well as when we read the research about the neurobiology of cortisol and oxytocin and how those are antidotes, we said forget it. We don't care. Like, we're going to do this. And if somebody wants to complain, they can complain to us. But, and I think, and Andy and Nora, you've been in the building. I will tell you randomly now, even the bigger kids, it's not the big, the little kids come and give you the big squeeze. The little kids, the bigger kids, sometimes it's more of a this, a side by side. Sometimes it's a high five, but, there's some version of that going on, and it's just kind of spontaneous. And I would tell you, once we started sort of doing that, and we completely, because that's not how behavior was done in that building. Behavior was done about, you misbehave, you're out of that classroom, you're going in a room, and I'm going to set a timer until you calm down. That's how behavior was done. And there was one point in the building that the nurse, who had been there for a while, said to us, if the building had just settled, and she said, happy kids. And that makes all the difference in the world to us. Now we can teach them, right? Now we can teach them. So, Jen, you want to say about your sentiment?
Yeah, and I think just to add to that as well, to speak to what you said about the teachers, there was definitely a little hesitation in the beginning. It was sort of like, what are you doing? You just swoop that kid right up. I think just the more that they saw the interactions that the admin and the leadership and the support staff had with the kids and how powerful that was, we then started to see the buy-in slowly from the staff as well. And so now it's sort of this community approach. But it didn't happen off the bat. It wasn't like we sat down and had a PD and said, okay, you're going to start hugging now. It was just sort of, it started small and then it spread because they saw the effects of it. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. And the newsletter, yeah, so that goes out once a week. There's updates in it. We call them shout outs as well. Do people read it? Yes, they do.
Remind them to read it.
Yes, I have to remind them to read it. I send it out on the weekend, so that way, and I always just tell the staff, look, your life and your private time is equally as important as your work here, and so if it's something that you like to do at home, and on that Sunday, read it and get yourself ready for the week, or if you are somebody that shuts it down on the weekend and you want to come in Monday and tackle it then, but the expectation, and as a community, we all know, but by the close of day, today, Monday, they read it. They send me feedback, they'll send shout outs for one another, and that column that you saw where we walk our partner wide, if they see things happening that are connected to the instructional reports, they'll send them to me. So my coaches or teachers will say, hey, I was in kindergarten and we saw them with this great hook, and they'll send a picture. And so it's become sort of like a community memo that even though I send it out, we have a lot of input from others.
If we could go back to the engagement counselors.
Oh, yeah.
Now, were the disciplinarians removed from the building completely, or were they purposely?
Well, they were removed.
So then the question either way is, what kind of training did you get the engagement counselors?
Restorative justice, restorative circles, building meaningful relationships, developing opportunities to engage, efficacy training, all sorts of trainings, growth mindset, just numerous trainings like that. Trauma-sensitive pedagogy, we partnered with Wadico Healthcare. Everybody learned how to de-escalate behaviors rather than to exacerbate them.
Could I follow up? Do you have any idea if you're in a system where your disciplinarians are your vice principals? Is there,
Okay.
we can't get rid of those folks. Do you have any thoughts on how to repurpose that?
Yeah,
Help them that's really the hard thing.
So they were typecasted in those roles, right? And so you have to change that. But in order to change that, you have to change some other things, right? You have to change the organization. Are you still a top-down organization? Is the principal still in the office, sending the assistant principal out to, mind the halls? You have to change that. The principal has to be in collective organization with every other member of the community. You have to show up and then invite that assistant principal. That assistant principal should be on the bench to becoming the next principal. Has to be freed up to be a leader. So somebody made that their job and trained them in that job and typecasted them. So you have to just blow that up and put them to work on some data or something.
I'm 100% on board with everything you said, and you know that if you address students and believe that kids succeed if they can, you make it possible to do so, you will reduce those challenging behaviors. But, this is my question for you, because it's the thing I struggle with. You still suspended 5 kids out of school. What does it take to get suspended out of your school? And what do you do for the kids who are right up at the end? What are the interventions?
So what it takes to get suspended is if you have like a knife or a drug.
7, 8.
Right. So that's that stuff, right?
Right.
And the second part of your question?
And what do you do for the kids that are just one step above after everything?
So, first of all, we have mentoring, right? So every single boy in our school, male, goes through a rites of passage program. And they have male role models that are there for them. So it might just be that that kid that's right there gets his arm taken and gets a hug and gets to go out of the building and take a walk with a big guy who's going to say, is everything okay? What's really going on with you? I'm worried, and I'm your biggest fan. How can I help? And then you can get the tears or get to the real challenge. But if there's so much going around the child, the defenses might still be in play. So we have BAM, we have alpha males. And in the alpha male program, as they matriculate up, they serve as mentors to those below.
So just here's my question. This is
Yep.
my question.
Circles.
So the 3 things that are 37 age are weapons,
Yeah.
assault,
Yep.
a teacher,
Yeah.
and drugs.
Yeah.
Right? So if a student gets in a fight, are they not suspended out of school? But you have no fights.
Well, I want to be honest with you. We haven't had a boy fight in over 3 years.
We have girl fights.
We have girl social media fights. They don't really get to be like, I'm going to punch you.
After school, and then they bring it in the next day just to talk.
And I'm asking
Yeah.
the question because honestly, the thing I struggle with is we've gotten our suspensions way down.
Yeah.
But I don't want to suspend the kids for some of those behaviors that so unlikely. I'd like
Right.
to figure out what do I do constructively if they still do get in fights.
So it's counseling, it's restorative circles, it's creating the opportunity for them to be accountable, for making a better choice. It's a number of things, but it's not throwing them away, and it's not rejecting them because they've had enough of that. But it's allowing them the opportunity to problem solve and providing them the skills necessary to do it.
So we just have a couple minutes left, so I have a question for you. 6, 16, 60, what do you see in common across these 2 schools that it doesn't matter how old you are, and the way these folks lead? Yeah,
For relationships.
their relationship good. Yeah. What else? This is all about leadership, right? How do you lead this work? We have a high school that was in a difficult place a number of years ago. We have a level 5 elementary school that both are flourishing, thriving places to be as a young person. Yet the age difference, one's in New Bedford, one's in Boston. Some kids are 5 or 6, some kids are 16 or 19. What's common in those places and the way these folks lead? Yeah.
They took a proactive approach to help students rather than react to everything that goes on.
Proactive, yeah.
They take risks and enjoy their job.
There you go. They take risks. They love their kids. They love their kids, and they're their kids. Yes.
They don't see it as a kid problem. They see it as an adult issue that we need to resolve. Yes, you know.
Yeah. And I think, I know Lindsa just touched on this, and I know Parker. In Parker, for example, 80% of the teaching staff is 1 to 3 years. New teachers. You don't need superstar teachers to do this with young people. You don't need, these people who are going to somehow save the day and come in because they're great tacticians. This is how you train people, as the Burke has done, to really do what they want to do in the first place, which is to engage with kids. You give them muscles. You help build their ability to do what they want to do in the first place. I mean, thank our teams, Parker and Burke.